Lesson one, the rich don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. First question I want to ask you is that something that you believe in? Is that something that you think is true? Because if you believe that it is something that is possible, then that becomes something that you become aware of and you start working towards. And otherwise, and we've got everybody that wants to be loud right next to the car right now. That's just so funny. So if you believe that it's true, then it becomes possible. Okay, let's get started. Dad, can you tell me how to get rich? My dad put down the evening paper. What do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mum drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to their beach house for the weekend. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is well today. This is a special edition of a reading with Menno because if you're on BIGO, you can see that I am in the car. If you are on Zoom, you probably cannot because I've got a background filter. So if I take that one off, you can see that I'm in the car. And the reason for that is because I am on my way up for Christmas to see my mum, who is 320 kilometers north of Sydney. And so I am halfway up the freeway at the rest station. But we're still going to do our reading. And I went to the bookshop yesterday. I needed to get a Secret Santa for somebody. So I went and got a book for them. And I also got, surprise, surprise, I got Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I have been saying for ages that I wanted to read, and I only had the Chinese version. Now I have the English version as well, which is really cool. So we're going to be reading from that one today for the next 10 or so minutes. And I am looking forward to getting into that one. I hope your week has started well. I'm just keeping an eye on everybody that's around me since I'm at the parking in the middle of nowhere. Well, on the freeway. Anyhow, let's get into some reading. This will be good. Okay. Lesson one, the rich don't work for money. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. First question I want to ask you is that something that you believe in? Is that something that you think is true? Because if you believe that it is something that is possible, then that becomes something that you become aware of and you start working towards. And otherwise, and we've got everybody that wants to be loud right next to the car right now. That's just so funny. So if you believe that it's true, then it becomes possible. Okay, let's get started. Dad, can you tell me how to get rich? My dad put down the evening paper. What do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mum drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to their beach house for the weekend. He took 3 of his friends, but Mike and I weren't invited. They told us we weren't invited because we were poor kids. They did? My dad asked incredulously. Yeah, they did, I replied in a hurt tone. My dad silently shook his head, pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, and went back to reading the paper. I stood waiting for an answer. The year was 1956. I was 9 years old. By some twist of fate, I attended the same public school where the rich people sent their kids. We were primarily a sugar plantation town in Hawaii. The managers of the plantation and the other affluent people, such as doctors, business owners, and bankers, sent their children to this public elementary school. After 6th grade, their children were generally sent off to the private schools. Because my family lived on one side of the street, I went to the school. I had lived on the other side of the street. I would have gone to a different school. Had I lived on the other side of the street, I would have gone to a different school with kids from families more like mine. After grade 6, these kids and I would go on to the public intermediate and high school. There was no private school for them or for me. My dad finally put down the paper. I could tell he was thinking. Well, son, he began slowly, if you want to be rich, you have to learn to make money. How do I make money? I asked. Well, use your head, son, he said, smiling. Even then, I knew that really meant that's all I'm going to tell you, or I don't know the answer, so don't embarrass me. Partnership is formed. But before we get on to the next part, it's important to remember, and I've got the neighbors just looking through the car window here and making lots of noise. The joys of doing a reading away from home, I suppose. Anyhow, so the important thing to realize is that when it comes to making money, there's an important lesson already in that very section there. And that is that sometimes when we get jealous, when we want what other people want, we tend to lose our heads and we go for a very, very quick solution rather than take the time to think about what we're doing. Now, if you have learned a little bit about investing already, then you already know that sometimes you just know what you need to do, you get into it, but you don't think about it so much, and that can be a bit of an issue. So, just like Rich Dad in this, or not Rich Dad, in this case, Robert Kiyosaki, he sees this, what he sees as inequality, where his friends have lots of stuff and they can go on holiday and he's not invited. He wants to find a solution and he dives into it, and he asks for advice, which is really, really good. But his father can't give him advice. So then he jumps in and does something himself, which isn't necessarily really good. So we need to be careful that if we get jealous of somebody, that's a good thing that we want to then also achieve more for ourselves. But we need to then think about how we're going to do it. Asking other people is great, making sure that they're the right people, and keep going, because he just asked his father who doesn't know the answer. And so then he's a little bit stuck and he finds his own answer, which is really good. And there's a very good lesson in that as well. However, he rushes into it a little bit, if you ask me. A partnership is formed. The next morning, I told my best friend Mike what my dad had said. As best as I could tell, Mike and I were the only poor kids in the school. Mike was also in this school by a twist of fate. Someone had drawn a jog in the line for the school district, and we wound up in a school with the rich kids. We weren't really poor, but we felt as if we were, because all the other boys had new baseball gloves, new bicycles, new everything. Mom and Dad provided us with the basics like food, shelter, and clothes, but that was about it. My dad used to say, if you want something, work for it. We wanted things, but there was not much work available for 9-year-old boys. So what do we do to make money? Mike asked. I don't know, I said. But do you want to be my partner? He agreed. And so on that Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money. Occasionally we talked about all the cool guys at Jimmy's beach house having fun. It hurt a little, but that hurt was good because it inspired us to keep thinking of a way to make money. Finally, that afternoon, a bolt of lightning struck. It was an idea Mike got from a science book he had read. Excitedly, we shook hands, and the partnership now had a business. For the next several weeks, Mike and I ran around our neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking our neighbors if they would save their toothpaste tubes for us. With puzzled looks, most adults consented with a smile. Some asked us what we were doing, to which we replied, we can't tell you, it's a business secret. It's interesting how easy it is for children to start businesses, because adults will just give them whatever they request and need because they want them to succeed. When you're an adult, very often your friends and everybody that's there that could support you is really hesitant about giving you money and wanting to support you. It is really interesting how that works. Okay. My mom grew distressed as the weeks wore on. We had selected a site next to a washing machine as the place we would stockpile our raw materials. In a brown cardboard box that at one time held ketchup bottles, a little pile of used toothpaste tubes began to grow. That's an interesting way Americans spell ketchup. Finally, my mom put her food down. The sight of her neighbor's messy, crumpled used toothpaste tube had gotten to her. What are you boys doing? She asked. And I don't want to hear again that it's a business secret. Do something with this mess or I'm going to throw it out. Mike and I pleaded and begged, explaining that we would soon have enough and then we'd begin production. We informed her that we were waiting on a couple of neighbors to finish their toothpaste so we could have their tubes. Mom granted us a 1-week extension. The date to begin production was moved up and the pressure was on. My first partnership was already being threatened with an eviction notice by my own mum. It became Mike's job to tell the neighbors to quickly use up their toothpaste, saying their dentist wanted them to brush more anyway. I began to put together the production line. I am really amazed at how amazing Robert Kiyosaki already was with his business acumen. Even though he didn't have a rich dad, I think Mike might have had something to do with it, because obviously Mike had the rich dad. But it's amazing the ideas that they came up with for getting their idea, that they were able to come up with a way to produce it, that they were able to persuade others to use their toothpaste more quickly. Really, really amazing. One day, my dad drove up with a friend to see two 9-year-old boys in the driveway with a production line operating at full speed. There was fine white powder everywhere. On a long table, there were small milk cartons from school, and our family's hibachi grill was glowing with red-hot coals at maximum heat. Dad walked up cautiously, having to park the car at the base of the driveway since the production line blocked the carport. As he and his friends got closer, they saw a steel pot sitting on top of the coals in which the toothpaste tubes were being melted down. In those days, toothpaste did not come in plastic tubes. The tubes were made of lead. So once the paint was burnt off and the tubes were dropped in the small steel pot, they melted until they became liquid. And with my mum's pot holders, we poured the lead through a small hole in the top of the milk cartons. The milk cartons were filled with plaster of Paris. White powder was everywhere. In my haste, I had knocked the bag over and the entire area looked like it had been hit by a snowstorm. The milk cartons were the outer containers for plaster of Paris molds. My dad and his friend watched as we carefully poured the molten lead through a small hole at the top of the plaster of Paris cube. Careful, my dad said. And that is very interesting. The fact that parents will always tell their children to be careful, which is actually hindering them from business success. I nodded without looking up. Finally, once the pouring was through, I put the steel pot down and smiled at my dad. What are you boys doing? He asked with a cautious smile. We're doing what you told me to do. We're going to be rich, I said. Yep, said Mike, grinning and nodding his head. We're partners. And what is in those plaster molds? My dad asked. Watch, I said. This could be a good batch. With a small hammer, I tapped at the seal that divided the cube in half, cautiously pulled up the top half of the plaster molds, and a lead nickel fell out. Oh no, my dad explained. You're casting nickels out of lead. That's right, Mike said. We're doing as you told us to do. We're making money. Okay, we'll leave it there. We're on page 24 next. It is really important that if you want to achieve something, that you have a think about what it is that you want to achieve and what you might be able to do to achieve it. And then you look for the right people and the right resources to be able to make it a reality. And this is what the two boys are doing. So we'll continue with this story next time and have a think about what your goals are, and especially with the new year coming up, which is a really important time and a really good time for this. Have a think about what you want to achieve next year, what kind of resources you need, what kind of people you need. I put this into the newsletter that I send out as well. And from that, you can start to create almost anything, even things that haven't been done before. There was somebody who managed to sell $1 million worth of goods in 24 hours online at one point. And everybody said that it was impossible. And now people do it very, very regularly because they've seen that somebody else has done it. And so they believe that they can do it as well. So have a think about that. We'll continue with a Rich Dad, Poor Dad tomorrow. I should be at my mother's place, which should make it a lot easier than sitting in this hot car. I am sweating. There are people all around. They are making a lot of noise. Hopefully you haven't heard all of that. But we managed to get some of a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Finally got the book that I wanted to read to you from the start. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of the business and the investment lessons that that book contains. And I am going to wipe my face and get ready to keep driving. Okay, thanks for joining. Remember, if you want to watch replays of any of the readings that I've done up until this point and some of the other educational content that I have put up, you can do that at the Passive Cashflow Club. Remember to subscribe if you like what you see there. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there and getting your comments, because at the moment it's just my commentary. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are about these books and the chapters that I've read as well. And if you want to get to know me a little bit more personally and see what I'm up to, you can see all of those things at Instagram, business_team_the6_official. You will find me there. You can also direct message me and let me know what you are up to and get in touch about whatever you like, really, investment-wise. And tonight we have cash flow. I'm going to be at my mother's place. I will not be in the car, so it will be a lot better. And we are going to be playing Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad's board game, which is called Cash Flow. We are doing an online version, so you can play from anywhere in the world. It is not only a lot of fun, but it's very educational. I'm going to give some educational material at the end. We're going to talk about how to analyze investments, which is extremely important and so much fun at the same time. and I'll make sure that we're going to do it in a fun way for you as well. And yeah, if you'd like to know more about that, send me a DM on Instagram, business_team_6_official. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I'm looking forward to following you back, and have an amazing day, and hopefully also see you at Cashflow or on the YouTube page or on Instagram. I'll see you all tomorrow for another reading, but not from the car.